Top 10 early muscle cars that shook the drag strip first. Have you ever wondered which car first made the drag strip shake? Not from tire smoke, but from fear? What if I told you that before the big names, before the magazine covers, there were a handful of street legal monsters quietly rewriting the rule book on raw power? We are talking about factory-built missiles with race-ready internals, aluminum panels, and no patience for the slow lane. These were not show cars. They were shock cars, and they did not just turn heads, they ended careers. We asked over 350 of you, which early muscle car shocked the strip first? And your answers were loud and clear, but the real story runs deeper than the vote. Today, we are diving into 10 of the earliest muscle machines that redefined what a street car could do. So, buckle up, drop your favorite in the comments, and hit that subscribe button, because this is where the muscle car era really began. In 1964, Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. It was not just fast, it was outrageous. In 1964, Ford's underground performance division, the infamous Skunk Works, decided to go nuclear. The result? The Ford Fairlane Thunderbolt. They stuffed a 427 cubic inch V8 with dual Holley 4-barrel carburetors into a lightweight Fairlane body, then ripped out anything that even smelled like comfort. Steel bumpers? Gone. Heater? Deleted. Sound insulation? Forget it. Even the hood was fiberglass with a mail slot air scoop that looked like it could suck birds right out of the sky. This monster made 425 factory-rated horsepower, but insiders say the real number was even higher. On the drag strip, it ran the quarter mile in the 11s in 1964. That was not just fast, that was revolutionary. But the real kicker? This thing was street legal. Barely. Just enough to qualify for NHRA Superstock. With skittish handling, thunderous torque, and a curb weight that felt like it was made of balsa wood, the Thunderbolt was not a car you drove. It was a car you survived. No wonder it topped our community poll with 36% of the votes, proving that for many muscle car fans, the Thunderbolt was the first real shot fired on the drag strip. A street assassin in factory disguise. In 1963, Chevrolet Impala SS409. You did not just drive a 409, you announced it. If you were lucky enough to see one roll into a local cruise night back in the early 60s, you remember the deep burble of that dual-quad V8 and the unmistakable SS badging. This was a full-size street king with a secret weapon, 409 cubic inches of raw Chevrolet Fury, putting down 425 horsepower straight from the factory floor. But this was not just a numbers car, it was a pop culture icon. The Beach Boys made it a household name in their hit song, She's Real Fine, My 409, and teenage gearheads across America suddenly had one dream: own a Chevy with a big block badge and a 4-speed shifter. What made the '63 Impala so special was not just its muscle, it was the moment it captured. For many of you who voted, it was the car your older brother took to high school drags, or the one you saw do burnouts behind the drive-in movie lot. It looked like a luxury cruiser, but when you stomped the gas, it launched like a rocket. Your votes, 28% of them, confirm it was not just about performance. It was about pride, about cruising Main Street on a Friday night, about that first burnout, that first race, that first love, with a 409 under the hood. and that is something no dyno sheet can ever measure. 1964. Pontiac GTO. Some say it started here, the muscle car movement as we know it. The 1964 Pontiac GTO did not just show up at the drag strip, it rewrote the rulebook. For the first time, you could walk into a dealership, check a few boxes on an order sheet, and roll out with a mid-size car packing a big block punch. Under the hood was a 389 cubic inch V8, good for up to 348 horsepower with the tri-power setup. In the right hands, it could run the quarter in the low 14s, and on the street, it felt even faster. But numbers do not tell the whole story. What made the GTO legendary was how attainable it felt. This was not some limited-run drag machine built for pros. This was the kind of car your neighbor bought brand new, waxed every Saturday, and raced on Sunday. Some of you remember seeing it parked at the A&W drive-in, the talk bouncing as the clutch dropped and the rear tires lit up the night. Others remember riding shotgun as your dad, or maybe your crazy uncle, blasted down a country road, radio blaring, hood scoop humming. With 19% of your votes, the GTO earned its spot not just as a performer, but as a memory, a milestone, a moment. It made muscle real. It made horsepower personal. And for a generation of drivers, it made life a whole lot louder. (1964) Plymouth Belvedere 426 Max Wedge. This was not built for Sunday cruising. It was built to dominate. The 1964 Plymouth Belvedere 426 Max Wedge was not just a muscle car. It was a missile on wheels, loaded from the factory with Chrysler's most fearsome engine, the 426 cubic inch Ramcharger Max Wedge V8, rated at over 425 horsepower. But if you know Mopar history, you know those numbers were conservative. In race trim, these machines were blasting down the quarter mile in the low 1100s, putting fear into anything that dared to stage next to them. The Max Wedge heads, high-rise intake, and high-compression internals were pure drag strip tech, and that is exactly where these cars belonged. But here is what made it terrifying. This level of power was not meant for the streets. Yet Plymouth sold it to the public. Drivers quickly learned that even light throttle could set the tires ablaze. With an empty trunk and a short wheelbase, traction was optional. Steering under acceleration? Pray. Only true drag racers tamed these beasts. And for the rest, well, they learned the hard way what happens when you unleash a race engine on city pavement. With 17% of your votes, the Max Wedge Belvedere proved that brute force was not just a Mopar specialty, it was a warning to the rest of Detroit. 1962 Plymouth Savoy 413 Max Wedge. Before the Thunderbolt, before the GTO, before the 409 became a chart-topping anthem, there was this: the 1962 Plymouth Savoy 413 Max Wedge. You want to talk about shocking the strip? This is the moment everything changed. Under the hood was the original Max Wedge engine, a 413 cubic inch V8 with high-rise cross-ram intake, forged internals, and compression ratios up to 13.5 to 1. Factory horsepower ratings pushed 420 plus, but in reality, these machines were dynoing well over 470 horses. Tuned right, They ran 11-second quarter miles straight from the showroom. But make no mistake, this was not for the faint of heart. Just starting one required racing fuel and nerves of steel. The lightweight Savoy body combined with massive torque made launching it a gamble on traction. At full throttle, it did not hook, it hunted. And yet, for fans of early drag racing, this is the car they remember. It is the little old lady from Pasadena car, a reference born from the sight of lightweight Dodges and Plymouths destroying competitors at red lights and track lights alike. This was not just a muscle car, it was Mopar's opening salvo, and it hit hard. Ask anyone who was there in '62, the Max Wedge did not ask for permission. It made a statement, and it shook the strip like a bomb going off. 1962, Pontiac Catalina, 421, Super Duty. Pontiac, in the early 60s, had one goal: beat everyone. So what did they do? They grabbed their full-size Catalina, a car your grandma might drive to Sunday Mass, and stuffed a monster under the hood. We are talking a 421 cubic inch V8 with dual Carter 4-barrel carbs, forged everything, and aluminum body panels to keep it light. Officially, it made 405 horsepower. Unofficially, try 460 plus on race gas. But here is the real kicker. Pontiac sold it to anyone with the guts or wallet to ask for it. You could walk into a dealership, check off the right boxes, and roll out with a factory superstock killer that could run high 11s in the quarter mile. The result? Chaos. Guys were pulling their mother's license plates off to keep it street legal. These things were lighting up back roads, collecting pink slips, and rattling windows before dinner time. The Catalina 421 Super Duty looked like a big cruiser, but hit the throttle, and it launched like a surface-to-air missile. It was loud, it was brutal, and it was built at a time when horsepower meant freedom. And that is why old-school racers still whisper one word: poncho. '62, Dodge Dart 413, Max Wedge. Before Dodge became famous for Chargers and Challengers, they shocked the drag racing world with the 1962 Dart 413 Max Wedge. It was a purpose-built quarter-mile machine, born from factory engineering and NHRA ambitions. At its core was the 413 cubic inch Ramcharger V8, a high-compression dual-quad engine using a wild cross-ram intake and long-tuned runners that delivered peak torque at high RPM. Rated at up to 420 horsepower, it was a fire breather on race gas. Backed by a heavy-duty torque flight or a 4-speed manual, this setup was capable of low 12 to high 11-second quarter miles right off the showroom floor. To keep weight down, Dodge stripped the Dart of all unnecessary comfort: aluminum front panels, no radio, no sound insulation. This was not a daily driver. It was a drag strip missile disguised as a mid-size sedan. Although overshadowed today by later Mopar icons, the 413 Dart was one of the earliest factory drag packages, laying the foundation for Dodge's superstock legacy. For many early racers, this was the car that proved Chrysler was serious, and it set the tone for the brutal HEMI machines that would soon follow. '61, Chevrolet Biscayne, 409. Before the 409 became a hit song, it was a street rumor. In 1961, if you knew a guy who really knew a guy, You might have heard whispers about a bare-bones Biscayne packing Chevy's newest weapon, the 409 cubic inch V8. It did not come with flashy trim, wire wheels, or fancy badges. No, the Biscayne was the working man's car, taxi cab looks, bench seats, dog dish hubcaps. But under the hood, thunder, pure thunder. That first year, 409 made 360 horsepower and turned the quietest corners into burnout zones. Some of you remember seeing them cruise by with no mufflers, just headers dumping raw sound onto the pavement. You could hear them coming a block away, a deep, hollow growl that made your chest vibrate. This was not the car you saw in the showroom. It was the one you heard late at night, heading toward the industrial park, where street races happened under dim sodium lights. Guys raced for respect, for pinks, and sometimes just for the thrill of getting there first. The 1961 Biscayne 409 did not make headlines. It made memories. And for many of you, it was the first time you saw a plain Jane Chevy eat a Corvette alive. (1962) Ford Galaxie 500-406 Tri-Power. Back in 1962, if you pulled up to a stoplight next to a Galaxie 500, you probably didn't think much of it. Big car, wide stance, maybe some chrome trim. But if you heard it idle, that deep loping rumble with just a bit too much cam, you knew something wasn't stock. That's because, under that long hood, might have been Ford's 406 cubic inch V8, equipped with triple two-barrel carbs, the legendary Tri-Power setup. Factory rated at 405 horsepower, it was built to compete with Chevy's 409 and Mopar's 413 Max Wedge. And it did. Quietly. Many of you remember seeing these cars at local drive-ins, the hoods popped, chrome air cleaners gleaming under the lights. They weren't flashy. They didn't need to be. The Galaxie was all business, a sleeper with full-size style and small block attitude. Some recall hearing the hiss of vacuum-operated headlights flipping open, followed by the screech of bias bliss as someone tested their luck against it. Others remember Dad owning one, plain white, column shift, but somehow always first out of the hole at the Friday night drags. The Galaxie 406 didn't need to shout. It let the time slip do the talking. (1961) Ford Starliner 390. What if I told you Ford's first true muscle car didn't wear a Thunderbolt badge and didn't even look like a muscle car at all? In 1961, Ford quietly unleashed the Starliner 390, a sleek fastback with space-age curves and a deep, dark secret under the hood. This car wasn't just about design. It was a test mule for something bigger. Ford engineers had shoehorned a high-performance 390 FE engine into a body that slipped through the air like a bullet. No press tours, no marketing blitz, just raw power for those in the know. But here's the twist. While the world was busy watching Pontiac's GTO and Chevy's 409 make headlines, Ford kept the Starliner low profile. Why? Because it wasn't built for mass appeal. It was built to scout the battlefield and vanish. Dealers didn't push them. Brochures didn't brag. And today, almost nobody remembers. Yet, if you talk to old-school racers, they'll tell you stories. Of Starliners pulling bus lengths on factory superstocks, of mysterious fastbacks with no badges but all bite. Was it a mistake Ford never followed through? Or was the Starliner never meant to be remembered? And that's our countdown of the early muscle cars that shocked the drag strip and changed everything. These weren't just cars, they were statements of power, speed, and attitude. Which one left the biggest mark on you? Did we cover your favorite, or is there a hidden legend we missed? Drop your thoughts in the comments, We love hearing your stories. And if you enjoyed this ride through muscle car history, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. At our channel, we don't just tell stories, we keep the legends alive.